Hi everyone, in today's video we are going to look at a new ComfyUI plugins developed by Impact Frame that actually brings Gemini 2.0 Flash into a ComfyUI workflow. I'll run through how to set it up, how to install it, but we're also going to look at a live demo on how to use it for architecture purposes. We'll explore how it performs, where it works well, but also where the limitations are. And it's not a magic solution, but there's definitely some interesting possibilities if you use AI in architecture. And also, I will talk a bit about ChatGPT at the end on the conclusion to compare tests I've done with ChatGPT, because ChatGPT got released just while I was editing this video, so I had to talk about it. Let's jump in. Okay, so the first things you want to do is you want to install IF Gemini. So if you go to the manager and you go to install custom nodes in the all, they should be here. If Gemini, so Comfy if Gemini, Comfy if Gemini, and you can see it's from Impact Frames. And at the moment you can't really download it. It's still in the process of installing in ComfyUI. It's too early, so when you do this, it sort of like tells you like my Comfy here has a default channel security level, so I can't really change that. But by the time I will publish this video, it's probably going to be available, so you can click on it and it will install, and then you just restart when it's ready, and then you can get along with it. If you can't, there is this link below on GitHub where you have that plugin basically you can download. So you just have to go here and copy the address here. So what you're gonna need to do is you copy the address here, and then you go to your folder. So you're going to your Comfy folder, and then under Comfy, the model, and then you're gonna have custom model, custom nodes. And here you just write down CMD, opens up this window, and then you need to do git clone. So if you're not too sure about the process, everything is says here. So you go to your custom node and then you copy paste this one here. So I'm just I am now here in this sort of location where I have my custom nodes, and then here I copy paste, I press enter. It already exists, so it just doesn't want to do it. And then when you're done with it, you need to go again to your ComfyUI if Gemini. So if I go back to my custom node, I will see my ComfyUI Gemini here, and here again CMD, and then I open this folder, and then I can just copy paste this part here. So I'm going back to it, check I'm in the right one, pip install, and it will install. So it already satisfied because I already installed it, and there we go. So that's how you have to do if it's not accessible from the manager. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna build this script here. The first things you want is you want to load an image. So I'm loading an image here, and you can load as many images as you want. And then the second thing is you're gonna merge images. So image A or image B. Here I use batch image, so you can use batch image as well. And then all you have to do is image 1 with image 2, image 2 with, and then if you need another one, you can always do this and then add the third image. Now, something you need to be mindful is you might need to resize your image. So if you have to resize your image, I highly recommend to use that component, and then you can plug it here and then plug it back here. So sometimes it helps with the processing. So I already prepared it and then I have here base image. So basically those images, I've done them, so I'll share them with my patron, but so you can drop them into ComfyUI and see what workflow I used. But I basically use a very simple workflow. Actually, this one here. So very basic workflow, and I just wrote down a prompt, and you use Flux QA to generate that image, and I got an image like this one. I think actually I got the optimized one, so those ones. So I got a series of them. I didn't need to upscale them. I'm not going to use a higher res. I'm going to stick to that sort of default res of 1024 by 768. And then you can go through, and then, you know, I sort of went through and I picked the one I liked. So I actually really like this one with the transat. I went to the transat here, not quite, but with the rock, it's nice composition. Actually really like this one as well. Very elegant with the coast going and the infinity pool. So you can pick any image. So I'll make them available for my patron, but that's what I've done here. And then I picked an image from a toggle. So if I go back to my default, I'll pick this one here. Actually, for this demo, I may pick this one. So this is my original image, and then I'm gonna add a toggle. Not too sure how that's gonna go. Toggle so far, so let's pick this one. So I basically went to Ligne Rose Togo sofa. Beautiful sofas. I really love them. They're really nice. Yeah, so those ones here, Ligne Rose. For the little story, my parents used to have one like this, and they bought it in the 80s. So I used to have one of them when I was a kid, and they were much more cheaper back in the day. But anyway, you can choose. So you can choose one seater. They're really nice. I really love them. And then what you can do is actually, there are a couple of images here, and then there is also so here it shows you in beautiful brand, by the way. I love it. You can actually download the 3D model, but we're not gonna need that. But you have all the, you know, different view you can pick. So you can select one, and then I saved it under my folder. So let's go back to it. So I select the green one, sorry. And then for the last one, I also had people that I wanted to select. So if I go back to my people, same idea. If you drop those people here to this, you're gonna have my prompt for my patron. You're gonna have my prompt, but it just asks for photography of real people. And we can select maybe this one. So if I go back to my Gemini here that I create for you, I'm gonna select those people. So I asked for a neutral background, so it's easier to process. You could also create a mask to actually sort of isolate those people, but we're gonna keep it like this for now and see how we go. And then the last sort of second step is if LLM Gemini, and here you plug it in, as simple as this. Now the ratio, I'm gonna keep the ratio of this image, so I'm gonna do 16 by 9. I'll keep that as default, and then here you need to create an external API key. So to create this external API key, you need to go, I'll put the link below, and it's Get Studio Google API, and then you create a API key here. So you just need to acknowledge and then create this API key. They're gonna give you this API key, and then you can paste it here, okay? This will sort of flag, and then you can verify your API, and then we can go from there. So now I have my API key, and then I can verify my API key, and then it's successful. Now, and what we're going to do here is we are going to change that. So one of the things I like to do here on this one, what I've done is I use this prompt here, this one here. So I like this because it's sort of like, it tells like, make an environment with all those assets. So you have all these assets and then you make an environment out of it. And then all you have to do is preview image, and you can also save image if you want them to be saved. So I'm going to do this, and then I'm just going to press run. It's fairly quick, to be honest. And there we go. It changed a bit of the overall images, but it's quite impressive. I mean, it's a bit out of scale, this one. But, and then, yeah, it's like, hey, we're in the middle of something. Can we put this sofa here? So it's just work in progress. The guy is a bit tall compared to the size of the rest. So let's run another one and see. Look as bad. So this one looks really bad. It's very small, like it just somehow doesn't fit, but then the shadow is there. So the view, it didn't change much from the original. Like if I put the original side by side, it's quite interesting how much it retained the idea. I think overall it's quite nice, but it just tried to merge these little ones. So not quite there. And then this one doesn't have any of the furniture. This one is actually okay. There's some weird stuff here going on with the windows. But in terms of size, this is a bit bigger. Usually this is slightly bigger, but it's quite close to the normal size, I guess. So, you know, it could be interesting as a mix. Now, what you could do as well is you could actually remove this and just keep one image, just this one, and just tell it, remove sofa and put a chair instead. Okay, let's see. Okay. Wow, so here it removed everything. Here it removes the sofa and put a chair with a shadow, so it's sort of okay, feels a bit minimal, I guess. But then again, like this one is okay. The shadows works. So it's actually quite nice. I think it responds quite well. Like 1 out of 4 is okay. What I like though is it doesn't change anything and you don't have to in-paint anything. The only thing is it's hard to control the orientation of the object, I found. And also like sort of, you know, the exact position compared to like in painting, for example. Just remove the sofa. Okay, so you remove the sofa. Nice. All right, so all of them are quite good. So I'm just gonna select, I sort of want to keep the table. So I'm just gonna select this one and replace this one. So there we go. So it removed the sofa. So this is also a nice way, you know, it removed the sofa, got the reflection. So it can be a nice way to do it. Here there's something a bit weird happening with the table. So let's see, and then now I'm gonna add this one and I'm just gonna change this. And this one, I'm just gonna delete it. And then I'm just gonna say, add toggle sofa on the right side of the image. From image 2. Okay, so bit tricky because the orientation is not quite correct. I want the orientation to be towards the TV. Yeah, so we can see here it didn't quite get it. This one is not too bad. This one is out of scale, this one is out of scale. Not too sure what happened with this one. Every time I was doing, there were always one that was just completely out, like without the original. So I guess this one out of 4, this one came out okay. So this one is not too bad, but again, shadows are not quite there, but the scale is correct. I mean, this part here is very annoying, but this one sort of came out quite nice. So after 8 tests, we got something that is actually quite good. So what I found impressive is it managed to rotate it around and sort of find the best location, pick up on the perspective. Had some issue with scale, but overall it's quite interesting. So this one's quite successful. Okay, light image 2. Add people from image 3. And someone in the pool. Okay, so that's the result I have. So here we get some issue bit with the people. It's not as good. Here the shadows are not quite there. My table is a bit better here. Sort of modify a bit the table. Here it sort of almost feel like it's okay with the reflection on the water, but you don't really know if they sit on in the pool or on the board of the pool. And then again, there's some weird stuff with the scale of this little toggle sofa. This one is almost okay, but with a mini sofa again. So, and then again a mini sofa. So I feel like let's change the script and let's use one of the successful image we had from that process. Okay, so from the result we had this one that wasn't too bad. That was probably the least bad, I would say. So I'm just gonna use this one here instead of this one. So I'm just gonna drop it. So I believe it's this one. And then I'm just gonna remove that, and I'm just gonna add that here. And now that I have this, I'll just say that I want to integrate those people. So we'll add people from image 2 on the image 1. I'm just gonna remove this and see what happened. So we see. Okay, and here are the people. So I don't know, for me it feels like a bit like a bad photoshopping where those faces are also not quite there, completely out of scale. So it just doesn't have the same feel as Flux, I feel. I need to do more study. I think this one is probably the one that worked the best in terms of scale, but then again, no shadow. So it feels like photoshopping. But then you even lose a face. I mean, if I Photoshop an image like this, those people on this, I'll get a much better result than what I have here. So let's run another one and see how it looks like. So on paper, it definitely sort of competes with Photoshop, but in reality, it's not quite there yet in this example. However, I think it's something to keep in mind. There might be some ways to have more control over it. At the moment, I really like the simplicity of it, but I feel like it's still too simple. There's not enough options. I wish I could just say, okay, this sofa needs to be there, orientation needs to be there, to sort of inform a bit better the model, and also that the lighting would work well with the model, so you don't have to Photoshop the shadows or things like that. And the sense of scale seems to be quite challenging too. So here I'm trying another process where I'm picking like a reference image, but not really like the previous example where I want the sofas to match this image, but more to give it a bit of a mix of elements to put into the final image. So here I'm selecting the various toggle I would like to have on the image, and I really sort of simplify the prompt and just say, try to do some elements out of this process. So, and here I'm also exploring various options. We have Gemini, different version of Gemini, and I'm just going through a couple of them as well to see how they look like. By the way, the API is has been deleted, so that's why I'm not hiding it. It's no more connected to my account. And here's the result. So I got a couple of example. We sort of see the sofa. So I'm trying another Gemini just to see. So this one is a flash, do flash, and see if there are any differences with the same prompt and the same inputs. So it feels a bit more minimal. So a bit more like sort of matching slightly more sort of the input I wanted to have and the feel I wanted to have. So I'm just trying another round to see. And there we go, another one. So yeah, quite minimal, matched quite well. All the sofa are not showing on those image. So despite the fact that from my input I had all the sofa, sometimes I just have here, I just have the red one and then the green one on one of the image. This one is just the red one. And then you have the yellow one at the top that I'm not too sure what it's doing. So here I'm trying another Gemini. So not all of them are actually accessible through ComfyUI. Most of them are, and I'm not 100% familiar with all of them. So that's the Pro one that we just try now. So that's the result of the Pro one. So it's really hard to tell the difference. I found the Pro maybe slightly more polished in terms of lighting, but what's interesting with those images, because you don't have a basic image and you don't try to force the other element into that image, it actually on those images deal very well with lighting, with shadows, with composition. So it works quite well. Overall, I found the composition not as nice and polished as Flux, but again, so here now what I'm trying is I'm just reducing to 3 images, and I'm just gonna ask for a minimal apartment with ocean view in Australia, and I'm just trying without the reference image, the minimalist reference image, to see if it can compose that picture just from prompt and those inputs with the toggles. Okay, and that's the result. So it feels like less about the view and more about the sofas, I guess. So maybe that's where what I found out of those images where this process is good at. It's really to use it for products. So if you have a very good product and you want to sort of emphasize it and have ideas of shots of this or change context of that product into different settings, I think it's a very powerful tool. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is I'm just trying to simplify a bit the prompt. So I'm just gonna use again those 3 images, but then I'll just simplify and I just remove and I just ask it to do something out of these assets. And strangely enough, it actually done quite a good job on keeping the original image, which I was very surprised. So out of 4, 2 of them had like almost 3 of them had the chimney and the frame. So here I'm trying another sofa to see what comes out. And somehow I managed to get the people in as well, and the sofa and sort of the view changed a bit, so the architecture changed a bit, but you know, like out of 4, 2 of them maintained there this time. And finally we have a good purpose for it, so which is quite amazing. So I came across a post from Keir on LinkedIn about him changing an interior shot with different time of the day and different feel. So I was like looking at grabbing this image from Flux of one of the building I've done previously. And then I was, what about if we change the facade and the color of the building and eventually the time and the weather of the day, just to see how it runs. And then I click on it. So here's a facade color in black timber, bright summer day, and that's the result I got. So overall, in the iteration, I found just amazing. I mean, it's not really timber, I would say, like it's closer to some metal, sort of calzip or metal sheets, rain screen, I would say, that more than timber. But I think out of 4 images, I always get like at least one that is interesting. So here is at dusk. So I changed the time of the day to dusk, and the result is astonishing. I mean, the reflection is there. There might be a slight change in geometry, but overall it looks really close to the original. Even the light inside the building on the second floor is sort of showing the same. And here I'm trying with triangular panels. So, you know, the background is sort of changing on some of them. But again, probably 1 out of 4 is this one, I think is my favorite. So 1 out of 4 is okay. And then you could rerun it and have another one. To test maybe the size of the triangles that you want to put and see how it looks like. And this one is also my favorite. So there is rectangular panels where the opening is sort of disappearing behind those panels. So I'm not too sure about this, but it's just create that really nice smooth part. So now we're gonna change it to a snowy day, and there we go. So here now the opening is back, but then we have like that sort of skin effect where the panels are like opening up a bit. Feels quite interesting actually in terms of effect, and yeah, you could really feel like very close to the original image. And that's another one with triangular panels. And sometimes see how they're cropped and they're not quite there, and I'm not 100% sure how to fix this, but overall this one's, for example, is quite nice. So you have like that reflection, you have that mood of a snowy day, and this one is, for example, covered with hexagons. So we're gonna try this, and we're gonna try it dust on the snowy day, sunset, and see how it looks like. There we go. So the snow stopped, and then you have like this beautiful sunset in the background, and then you can see those hexagons on the facade, which is quite stunning in terms of outcome, really. Very impressive. And I mean, in terms of design process, this is a game changer. You know, I would have spent hours and days on modeling it in Grasshopper and Rhino to just try to get a feel of it. So here's with timber hexagons. You know, computer design is quite fast, but still, you know, you would still sort of, then you have to go through a render and get the image and get the right lighting, etc., etc. And here it's just amazing way to deal with that. And I think now it's about the critical thinking and how do you address that, and how do you pick the one that is relevant and makes sense. So here is the same as the original one, but this time I just wanted to change and just have a simple output, just with the snow maybe on top of the curves, a bit of a build up, and sort of have a feel of like another season through the building. So I'm just adding snow day, low lighting, and sunset, and that's the result. So out of 4, actually, there are a couple of really good ones. So we almost have like 2, 3 or 4 that are actually acceptable in terms of quality. Not only in terms of quality, but also in terms of relevance compared to the original image. So again, the camera angle and lens change, but when we put them side by side, some really interesting result. That's another run. I love the build up on the curvature. It makes it so real. The context changed a bit, unfortunately, so I think it can't really deal much with the context. It looks like it loses a bit of what's happening behind, but you get also that with control net, unfortunately, because it's quite far in the back, so it might be sort of hard to maintain. But you know, the feel of changing the season is just so enjoyable, especially in seeing snow. So overall, after running the test with Gemini 2.0 in ComfyUI, the results are kind of mixed. In the first test, trying to fix background and place product, it felt like a bit like bad photoshopping. Out of 8 tries, I got maybe 1 decent result. There were some clear issues in terms of scale, shadow, and also the lack of in painting really limit what you can do. But on the upside, sometimes the original model is able to rotate or being modified in an unexpected way, which can lead to some very surprisingly interesting results. So for the second test, it was about combining product and sort of describe more using a prompt, an interior and an atmosphere, which felt like a bit like a Russian roulette, to be honest. There were no real control over the architecture or the composition of the image. The image quality was okay, but you definitely need an upscaler. And then as soon as you add people, we also saw it might just sort of lose a bit of refinement. It works best, from my opinion, if you use it with an object, with a product, and you want to change the context behind this product, and you're not too specific on what's the context, which is for us as architects, it's not really the point. But then we got to the third test, and that was quite interesting how actually I let the model go and say, like, just create an environment with whatever you've got there and then try to come up with something. And strangely enough, it came very close to the original one, which was basically like the original image that I had, and then integrate the sofa and the people. Now he's done some bit of selection on the people, and then the quality and faces of those people weren't that great. So maybe with a good upscaler, maybe you can correct or modify those outcomes. But overall, it was interesting to just sort of let go and say, just make an environment out of those images. And it came up quite interesting. The good thing with that is like the furniture were to scale, the people were to scale, the lighting, the shadowing, everything was sort of working nicely without feeling something a bit weird coming out of it. So very impressive. And then finally the fourth test, where I put the architecture and then I asked to change the climate, to change the weather, to change the material of the facade, to change the pattern of this facade. This worked amazingly. Like I'm very surprised by the quality of the outcome. Again, out of 4, probably 1 was okay. But it helps you to iterate through the process. So I think for me, the game changer is I remember so many nights going through design and testing different ideas for a concept, and you know, getting even frustrated at the end of the day that I didn't quite manage to test all what I wanted to test. And I think because of the time frame, you can't really test as much options or as many options as you wish. And I think that was a frustrating point for me, and finding this where you can actually iterate through and test some ideas internally to really know where you're going, and then start modeling. And then when you model, you're gonna refine your model in Rhino and Grasshopper or Revit. You're gonna refine that design for sure, but the iteration process where you just grab idea and just throw idea out there and try to find the best project for the best context, for the best area, create like a very nice design. I think you need that iteration, you need this try and error until you get to the right solution. And I think that will sort of shift into like really critical thinking of like being able to actually manage to look at the image and being able to say this is great, this is good quality, and this is bad quality. And it's not going to be about how well you can model and how fast you can model, but it's going to be really about culture and understanding about space, about clients, about relationship with people, and see how that comes out. So very exciting. So in terms of performance, I think Gemini is very impressive, like 22 seconds for 4 images, and the quality is okay if you upscale it. But I think the lack of control for what or how I feel we can use AI is quite challenging. So personally, I will park it for now. I'm not fully convinced by how to use it. Okay, I have to admit that was the conclusion before I actually test the other part of the image where I mixed everything and it actually came up with some quite nice shadows, and also the test with the facade. So this was blow-minding, and I will definitely keep using this as a process. Now I test ChatGPT as well, because in the meantime, as I was doing this video, ChatGPT came out and very convincing. Same feature, quite performing, probably slightly better and slightly more user-friendly, but take way longer to process. So we'll see. I might do a video down the track on the comparison between ChatGPT and Gemini 2. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please give it a like, subscribe. It helps a lot the channel. And as usual, and as always, I will share all test file with my Patreon. And until next video, ciao.